you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Just double check. Okay, now you guys are showing up on everyone else's end.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Donald Maratz. I'm a second-year master's student in economics here at Duke. And
I'm Melissa Minto. I'm a second-year PhD student in computational biology and bioinformatics.
yeah, and we'll be answering some of your all's questions today. Feel free to send questions into the chat, and we'll get to as many as we can. We've got about an hour, so we'll go ahead and get started.
First question.
There we go. Cool places to eat around Duke. You want to start, Melissa?
Yeah, so actually the Duke's Cafeteria, it's called the Broadhead Center, has like a ton of different restaurants in there that's really, really good. My favorite place in there is the crepes place, and the poke place in there is really good. What about you?
Yeah, I actually really love eating in the Broadhead Center. I eat there a couple times a week for lunch. There's also a ton of other places around campus. There's a couple fast food places if you like McDonald's or what's the other one?
There's the smoothie place that's down
Yeah.
there.
What's the takeaway place there?
Panda Express.
Panda Express.
Yes,
That's
that's
it. That's
really
there.
good, yeah.
There's a couple sandwich places on campus. If you like to get off campus, you can always catch the bus over to East Campus. I do that sometimes and go downtown. Downtown's a really quick walk, maybe 10 minutes to Main Street, and there's a ton of restaurants on Main Street. Campus tour.
I think I'm not sure for the graduate side of things,
Yeah.
but there's a chapel tour where you can tour the inside of the chapel and climb the stairwell all the way to the top. But I'm not sure about campus tours.
I don't think the grad school has one. I could be wrong about that, and we might have to get back to you guys on that one. But I found that I was able to get older students when I first tried in here, people in their second year or beyond. We're happy to show people around. Campus is really easy to navigate. Everything's walkable on West Campus, and if you're on East Campus is also very small. So it's actually pretty easy to find your way around, and there's a maps.duke.edu, which is pretty helpful to find buildings and stuff if you're not sure where you're going.
And one tip that I learned after being here for a year, that the campus, at least the research side of things, is literally right next to the hospital. I had to go to the hospital for something. I left campus and drove to the hospital just to realize that it was like a building or two away from where I was. But I easily get lost, so. What are the pros and cons for houses versus apartments?
So I live in an apartment.
So do I, yeah.
I feel like apartments are a little bit easier. There's plenty of apartments close to campus. I actually walk to campus every day. Well, walk to a bus. I know a lot of people drive even from the apartments, but if you are looking for someplace that's convenient and relatively inexpensive, there's plenty of good apartments nearby.
I actually live a little bit further away from campus. It's about a 20-minute drive, closer to a mall in Durham. And me and my husband are actually looking to buy a house now, mainly because we have a dog and we want a backyard for the dog, but that's literally the driving force there.
Yeah, I think there are plenty of houses to rent. I have friends who rent houses, but they're going to be a little bit further away from campus because most of the stuff nearby is apartments.
Yep. How much is rent in Durham?
It's going to vary pretty wildly. I think right now I'm paying about $500 in rent per month, not including like electricity, utilities, all that stuff. But I live in some of the more affordable apartments near campus. Last year I lived in downtown, and it was actually a lot more than that. So
Yeah, so like I said, I live further away from campus. Me and my husband, we have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment with a sunroom, so it's quite spacious. And we pay under $1,100 a month. So if you want to split it up, me and him, it's about $550 a person. So pretty affordable.
Yeah, I should mention I have a roommate as well, so that's not 500 for a single, but
Yeah, but I have friends that live in single apartments and they pay around 700, and they live pretty close, like across the street from Duke.
yeah, I think 700 is a reasonable expectation. There's definitely some nicer apartments if you're interested in upscale. There's some that are like 1,200 plus in the middle of downtown that are really fancy, but that's all. It's up to you what your preference is.
Is it difficult to live without a car in Durham?
I don't think so. My program's about 180, and I think maybe 10 of us or 15 of us have cars. The vast majority of people are just walking distance to campus, and there's a couple grocery stores that are walking distance to most apartments. And you've also got the Duke buses, which are really convenient.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of public transit, and you can always use Uber and stuff. So.
Yeah. And Duke actually gives out a Go Pass along to every student, and so you don't have to pay for public transit around. I use a car because I live about 20 minutes away, but it's all up to personal preference.
Yeah, I use my car once a week to drive to the grocery store because I hate carrying groceries back on the bus.
What about
Bikes.
bikes? Where do you get them? I actually want to know this question. I want to get a bike.
Yeah, I don't have a bike either. I think there's a couple bike stores around town. I know there's one downtown. I think there's one in South Point Mall.
Oh, cool.
But in terms of using bikes on campus, lots of people use bikes. There's plenty of places to put them. Durham recently got some of those bikes that you can rent, like through an app on your phone.
Yeah.
I've never used it, but I've seen those on campus, and I've seen people riding around. So it's pretty accessible for bikes.
Is it safe to live in Durham? Do you feel safe at night?
So I do. I've lived in a couple different places that were definitely felt less safe than Durham. I think that Durham has a bit of a reputation that's a little outdated. I think Durham used to be a little bit more dangerous than it is today. I can only really think of a couple incidents in the 2 years I've been here in and around campus. I think that for the most part, it's similar to anywhere you are in the world. If you take reasonable safety precautions, don't wander around 4 a.m. by yourself. I think you're going to be just fine. I always walk home at night, 11 o'clock, midnight from campus. I've never had any trouble. There's tons of security guards scattered around campus and stuff. They do a good job making it a safe place to live.
I've actually lived in Durham since I was in middle school, elementary.
Oh, wow.
So I feel comfortable here. There are obviously places in every city that are less safe, but for the most part, Durham is a pretty safe place to live.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there ways for grad students to use the dining halls?
Yeah, so the campus food options we mentioned earlier on West Campus, the Broadhead Center and stuff, they all take, most of the grad students
don't really go on East Campus.
Yeah, I've only ever had one class over there. But I do know that grad students can use the flex points on your student cards.
Mm-hmm.
I've never met a single grad student who does.
Yeah, the points are pretty much equal to dollar amount, so it wouldn't really make sense to use them. You could also load money on there to print stuff, but most departments have free printing for their students. So. Yeah.
So, but in terms of accessing it, you can just use your credit card. You don't even have to be a Duke student at all. So you can always bring family and stuff. I actually really like bringing people who visit to the Broadhead Center because it's like, look how good the food is here.
It's so good. I remember my first time eating there. I was like, this is how the undergrads live. I wish they can see my undergrad dining hall.
Yeah, my undergrad was nowhere near as nice.
How many classes per term would you recommend?
I think it's gonna depend a little bit on what your demands are in terms of research and work. I know that so my roommate is a first year PhD in engineering, and he can do about 2 classes, and that's about it. I think pretty standard is 3.
Yeah. I think I average around 2 or 3 my first and second year as well.
Yeah, I've done 4 once. Wouldn't recommend it. I think I was probably working 80-hour weeks, 100-hour weeks that semester. So unless that's really your thing, I would strongly recommend sticking to 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. You have to take into consideration how much time you're going to be spending researching in a lab and what your PI would want from you, and how much time it's going to take to do background reading and your homework for the classes as well. And most programs, they would advise you to take a certain amount of classes, so they know historically how their students perform and how many classes is their maximum.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
What are some good ways to find a roommate or roommates?
So I've found 2 different roommates. One was through a now defunct website that Duke used to run, a roommate finder, but there's now there's a website called Duke List where people post looking for roommates. My current roommate I found through a friend.
Yeah, Duke List is also good for finding like used stuff. So around like move out season, a lot of people, undergrads and grads included, and also faculty and staff here at Duke can post stuff. They even post houses and apartments for rent as well on there. So it's a good like a Duke version of Craigslist that everyone should probably check out.
Yeah, and an important note with the Duke List is that you have to have a Duke ID on there to access the website at all. So anyone who's looking for a roommate on there is a Duke student.
Yeah.
Or faculty, I guess.
Are there graduate student social groups to meet students in other programs?
Yeah, I think so. I myself have gotten involved in a couple of different groups around campus. There's the Graduate and Professional Student Council. They put on events, tailgates for sports, other stuff throughout the semester. You can always go to those. I also think there's some pretty good social groups depending on what your interests are, if they're sports or faith or there's a lot of different things that I managed to get involved in.
Yeah, there are a lot of programs here at Duke through the grad school and other offices that are just across all grad programs. The ones that I'm involved in are BioCore. It's a program to increase the diversity in some STEM fields, and I'm also a part of the Boucher Society. It's a similar organization. There's a Caribbean group here as well. So yeah, it's just like undergrad, all the student orgs, they have basically a grad student version of it. And what's good about that is that the grad programs, or those programs, know that we're grad students and that we can't like commit like we could in undergrad, and so they make the events pretty accessible to us and also just flexible as well.
Yeah, and I would actually on top of that, and kind of going back to how many classes per term, don't bite off more than you can chew, especially that first semester. Like, you want to get here, you want to try to make some friends, you want to try to find some groups to get involved in and things to do, and don't kill yourself with work. Try to if you're doing a PhD, you're going to be here for 6 years. You want to make some good groups of people you like and stuff, and it's a long haul, so don't burn yourself out.
Do grad students stay in their own program bubbles, or do they hang out with each other?
I think my experience has been you hang out with as many people as you want to.
Yeah.
If you try to get out, you can get out. My weightlifting partners in the next school, one of my best friends, computer science. I'm in economics. It's totally doable to go out and find people and try to make new friends and different stuff. And
Yeah, and additionally, Duke is very like interdisciplinary, and so while I'm in the computational biology program, my lab is actually in neurobiology. So I actually see neurobiology folks more than I see computational biology folks. So it really just depends on your personal experience and how much you want to go out there or where you are physically. Like it really depends on who you are.
yeah, I would say a good way to meet people is to take cross-listed classes. I know that a lot of the programs offer a ton of classes that are listed across 3 or 4 departments.
Yeah.
And so you get a cool mix of people in there and good perspectives. And so it's a good way to learn, but it's also a good way to meet new people.
Would you recommend living with another student from your program or branching out? I'm married. I live with my husband. Sometimes I think it would be cool to live with another grad student per se, so that way we can exchange grad school woes on a more comparable level because my husband is not into science at all. But you see each other every day if you want. You might not want to go home and see that person too, or you might.
Yeah, I would say I would not recommend living with someone from your program. It might be different for some other programs. The program that I'm in requires a lot of group work. So, you're working with partners and stuff 12, 15 hours a day. Sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of a break when you go home, especially because I've found that a lot of my closest friends are the people I work with every day. So I work with them and I do social stuff with them. So it might be nice for your own personal space to live with someone who's doing a slightly different thing. And it's also a great way to expand your social circle and meet people in other programs. If you have a roommate who's from a different program, that's twice the number of events you can kind of go to and meet new people and have a good time.
Are there any qualifications to live in a dorm? Can you speak to the advantages and disadvantages of living on campus dorm at Duke?
I don't think there is grad student housing.
I don't think so. I think I've heard about it in the works on and off, but I don't think Duke provides grad student housing like specifically on campus. But the apartments that we mentioned before are literally across the street from Duke, so they might as well be on campus.
Yeah, and they feel a little bit like a dorm as well. In terms of whether or not you want to live close to campus or far away, it's totally personal preference.
Yeah. How difficult is it to get to classes between different buildings within 10 minutes?
I think it's pretty easy. As long as you don't have to make the transition from East Campus to West Campus, you're going to be fine. I think actually classes have 20 minutes between them. So it's a pretty easy walk. On West Campus, you never need to take a bus or anything like that. So
also, some buildings are connected or they're like have entrances right beside each other. It took me a little while to find that out too. Again, I get lost a lot, but just look at the map and study the route. But it's generally very easy to get from class to class.
Yeah, and I actually like to get to class. I'm one of those strange people who likes to get to class like 20 minutes early for all my classes, like sit in the front, put out all my notebooks and stuff and get really organized. And I never have any trouble getting from class to class and being that 20 minutes early. And so you probably won't have any trouble either.
Can the graduate RA job guarantee housing? How difficult is it to manage undergrads on a full-time graduate schedule?
I don't think that graduate RA jobs have anything to do with housing, actually. You don't mean research assistant, you mean residential advisor.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I actually think all the RAs are undergrads.
I'm not sure.
I could be wrong about that. I don't know anyone who does anything with that. And honestly, as a grad student, I think that would be terribly stressful to try to be an RA for undergrads. They work hard, but they also play hard, and you will work harder.
I ran into my college RA on this campus, a couple of days ago, and I just thought back to like, oh God, I'm so sorry. Thank you for putting up with me. Have a good day. Just
Yeah.
How do grad students eat other than cooking at home?
I pack lunch usually, where I eat at the Broadhead Center. It's pretty easy. Go from like between classes or go from the library or whatever.
And I'm on I'm on like the research side off of Research Drive. So again, really close to the hospital. So I can have the option of the Broadhead Center and also the cafeteria at Duke Hospital as well. But aside from that, grad school is all about finding free food. You do not graduate grad school without having an extra degree in how to, find free food on campus. So.
Yeah, there's always talks and stuff going on. I try to get at least a couple meals free a week. There's also tons of events that do provide drinks and stuff and like social hours. So I also try to get a couple free drinks a week. It's good policy.
Yeah. Could you rent a place in Raleigh, Cary, Chapel Hill, or further out and commute, or would that be time-consuming and stressful?
What do you think?
So I drive about 20 minutes to work or to school now, and I personally don't like driving that far. So it's really personal preference. Within Durham, like going on the outskirts of Durham, I don't think traffic is that bad. But once you cross over to Raleigh and Chapel Hill and you have to get on like the major interstates, traffic can get pretty rough in the mornings and like around 4 or 5. If you have a more flexible schedule, we can come in at 10 and leave at 6, then traffic won't be that much of a issue for you. But
for me, so there's one parking garage for grad students. It's going to be about a 10-minute walk at least to your building, probably, with the exception maybe of like the law school, I think is real close to it. But so you've got to drive, you've got to park, you've got to walk, you've got to do all this stuff. If you're really far out, that can add up quickly. For me personally, my commute is like my least favorite part of my day. I want it short as possible, but everyone's different. And so if you're happy renting a place in Raleigh, I think Raleigh, you're going to find it really far.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to live in Raleigh, especially because parts of Raleigh is going to take you 45 minutes to drive through without traffic.
Yeah.
So
I think if you want to look at those areas, looking off of 15501 between Durham and Chapel Hill is a really popular spot for grad students. And Cary is also kind of in between Raleigh and Durham. Cary is a very elusive place of North Carolina. I get lost in it all the time. And it's not correlated to me always getting lost. Everyone I know gets lost in Cary.
Yeah.
But what's the weather like, and how hot or cold does it get?
So I've been told that my 2 years here have been very unusual for North Carolina. Considering we've had 2 feet of snow twice since I've been here, a couple of hurricanes,
a couple tornadoes. So as a long-term Durham resident, I find myself saying more and more, oh, this weather is unusual for Durham. This weather is unusual for Durham. And I think that maybe it is the norm now, but Durham is very up and down sometimes. We see all 4 seasons, which is nice. It makes you appreciate all of them. But there's some days in the spring or some weeks in the spring where it can just be like on extremes. And then same for when you're transitioning from fall to winter. But I feel like that's pretty normal.
I think in terms of how cold it's going to get, it's probably not going to get much below freezing.
No.
You might get down into the 20s Fahrenheit. I think there was a stretch my first year where it got down into the teens, but I don't think it ever got down into single digits.
No.
Now in the summers it will get hot. It will break 100, probably. But I actually think the climate's pretty pleasant. It's easy.
Any tip for someone moving from a large city?
Well, depends on how large, I guess. If you're coming from New York City or London or anywhere of comparable size, significantly smaller. But having spent some time in large cities, I think Durham has a lot to offer. There's a lot to do. There is good public transport. It's not quite as good as having like a subway system and stuff, but you can catch buses.
Yeah. As far as just like having things to do, the Triangle is pretty good about covering all the bases. I feel like Durham has a more artsy scene, whereas Raleigh is more like businessy. There's lots of clubs in Raleigh, and I feel like Chapel Hill is also more of an artsy scene as well. So yeah, I always find stuff to do. Are there any sports clubs that welcome grad students?
I think so. I spent a little bit of time with the club soccer before I realized that grad school is every bit as stressful as work, which means that you don't have 2, 3, 4 hours to commit to a sport every day. Well, I mean, you might be a much better student than me, in which case, congratulations. I'm sure you can find a sport to play. But
yeah, I am horrible at sports, so I have not sought that out. But a couple of my lab mates do the club soccer as well. And there's also one. It's a one-day sport where you get in a boat and then you like get in a boat in the pool and then do something. We tried it. I think it's called squash. I don't know. There's lots of weird ones here. So.
But there are rec sports, and the rec sports are totally happy to take grad students and stuff. And that might be, if you're not super serious, not super competitive, I think you'll be able to have fun with that, and you'll find that'll fit your schedule a little bit better.
Are there certain programs that are exclusively on East or West campus?
There seems to be plenty of programs that don't go to East at all. I only know of one program that's pretty exclusively on East, and that's philosophy. I think for the most part, all the grad programs are centered on West campus, and you just might have a class or two over at East.
Yeah. How do we sign up to TA classes? Can we TA as a first year?
I think that's going to be department specific. In my department, you become a TA by finding a professor who is willing to have you TA. So for the most part, people don't do it in their first year because they don't know anyone yet. But there might be some departments that require it, in which case I think your department's going to set it up.
Yeah, so I know for the computer science department, you do TA your first year, but I imagine you worked it out with the professor very early on. And then for my program, TAing is a requirement, but we could either TA a class or put on like a workshop for the students in my program. So it's really department and program specific.
Yeah.
Could you give us several tips for a successful life at Duke?
What do you think, Melissa?
I'm trying to figure that out myself. What I've found lately that really works for me is being on a consistent schedule. My first year, I was like all over the place on my schedule, but recently I've been doing like 8 to 4:30 and then going home, relaxing, and that's been really good for me mentally, as well as being like really productive during those hours that I'm working here.
Yeah, that's actually really what I would say as well. So I came from work back to grad school, and I found that keeping that work ethic, that work mentality of, hey, I got to be here at 8 and I work until I'm done, to be really helpful. And I think even for the people coming directly from undergrad, the ones that I've seen be very successful, have a very set schedule. And they make sure that they've got everything planned, and I got to be doing this at this time and this at this time. I think that's going to be key to being successful. The other two things that I would really mention, getting some exercise is really going to help with your mental stress, because grad school is tough. I know undergrad can be tough, but I boy, for me, grad school is a big step up.
Yeah, definitely.
So you really need to take care of yourself, and exercise goes a long way. And the other thing I would say is make sure you're taking care of your mental health. There's a study that just came out about economics programs that 40% of economists develop depression in their first year. So Duke has some great mental health services, CAPS, which is over in student health. Right? There's also a health center and stuff. If you have, if you're sick or whatever, take advantage of those resources. Get in there. Your mental health is going to be key to your success, so you need to take care of it.
Another thing, transitioning, I did the transition from undergrad to grad school, and one thing that I didn't realize is shifting your importance in the classes. So the classes, they're mostly grad classes, they're not going to assign as much homework, and it's not about just like knowing the content, but it's more to just like get you curious into whatever subfield you want to go into. And so I put a lot of importance on the classes and getting the coursework done my first year. And I wasn't doing that well in my lab because I just wasn't putting so much time into it. And after, the first semester, you sit down, you speak with your advisors, and it became more apparent that I need to shift my focus more towards research and less about the classwork. And so little things like that. Make sure you get a gist from the upper years in your program on what you should be focusing on. What's the best barbecue in the area?
Do you have an opinion?
Nope.
I think there's a place called City Barbecue that's decent. I am not a huge fan of North Carolina barbecue.
Yikes.
It's okay.
I think is our barbecue tomato based?
Yeah, it's tomato based. I mean, there's plenty of barbecue places here in Durham. It's just not really my thing.
There's like the Q Shack, the
Q Shack,
Pit that's downtown. I don't eat barbecue because I'm a vegetarian, so I cannot help you. Do most housing options in Durham come with free parking?
I think so. I've lived in 2 different apartments. One of which I would recommend avoiding. That's West Village. Just save yourself the headache. Don't go live there. They look really nice, but they're the landlords suck. But both places I've lived, West Village and University Apartments, had parking.
Yeah. One thing that I found shocking when a lot of the recruits come to visit is they ask about the free parking, and they also ask about washer and dryer in the apartments. And I was like, is that not standard everywhere else? It's pretty standard here.
I think it's pretty standard. My apartment in West Village, again, don't recommend, did not have a washer and dryer in unit. But my one at University Apartments does.
Does DPAC offer discounts for Duke students? I feel like they would.
I think they do, but DPAC is super popular. It can be super difficult to get tickets to things. I mean, I really like musicals, and I haven't been able to go to a single one in DPAC. I've had to go to Raleigh a couple times.
Oh, yeah. Where do you go in Raleigh?
What is the place called? There's a center.
I think I know. Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. I've seen an opera there once. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
Most places do offer student.
Yeah, some sort of student thing. Yeah.
Is there a hiking club for grad students?
I am not aware of one. I do like to hike. And there's some great hiking nearby if you can find the time. The mountains are a 2-hour drive, or 4 hours if you like it really mountainous. But there's also places kind of within 45 minutes to go hiking. But I'm not aware of any organized club.
And for me, I like to think that I like hiking, but in reality, I like walking in nature. So Duke Gardens is really nice. The Eno is really nice. Mm-hmm. There's a intermediate beginner level hiking place in Hillsborough, which is about 45 minutes out. So there's lots of nice greenery nice activities to take part in.
Yeah, I think you can get to the Appalachian Trail in, I want to say it's a 3-hour drive to the Appalachian Trail. So if you're into like serious hiking, it's drivable.
Since neither of you are big barbecue fans, what are your favorite restaurants in Durham? My favorite right now is this one place called Namu. It's like a Korean barbecue coffee shop. So you can go there, sit down, and like drink your coffee and get work done. But they also have really good food. And they have like a meditation center in the back. It's really nice.
Yeah, there's a couple great places to eat downtown. I actually don't eat out a whole lot. There's a really cool salad place called Happy and Hale on 9th Street. That's always nice to go to. But there's a handful of restaurants that do like good nachos and stuff like that, like good evening food. There's also a ton of breweries, and they always have food trucks. It's North Carolina law that if you serve alcohol, you have to serve food. So all the breweries have food trucks, and it's always nice to go and get that kind of stuff. That's kind of my speed.
Yeah. Another thing about downtown is that I don't think they really allow chain restaurants downtown.
Yeah, no, they don't.
And so all the restaurants there are really unique, and so it's fun exploring down there.
Yeah.
What is the music scene like in Durham? Are there opportunities to perform and meet other musicians at Duke or in the city?
So there doesn't seem to be a ton of live music in some of the places I go to. I know that there's some stuff that gets put on campus that people seem to show up and play, and they're Duke students and stuff. There's a couple clubs, but
yeah, I would say I think this is in Chapel Hill, but Cat's Cradle puts on a lot of live shows. Yeah, to go to more like live events, I think Raleigh and Chapel Hill are the places to go. And it's nice because the traffic that those type of events bring in, especially like larger productions, is ridiculous, and I would not want to sit through that on a normal basis. But it's nice that it's like 20 to 30 minutes away to go.
Yeah.
Are services like Uber available in Durham?
Yeah. Uber, Lyft. I never have any trouble with it. If you get surge pricing, it's like $1 or $2. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How affordable
Are they for weekend grocery shopping? Okay. Yeah. I think that from my apartment to like Harris Teeter, I think it's like $6. So I think it's pretty affordable. I mean, it's all relative, I guess.
Yeah, there's grocery stores around every corner, so it's not ever like a far drive.
Yeah.
How visible are racial disparities on campus? That's a good question. I would say, so I went to school here in Durham to a mostly predominantly Black high school, and then I went to Meredith College, which is a mostly predominantly white institution. And so seeing both of those demographics and being a part of both of those have really I've been very keen to those kind of details. And on campus, both on the undergrad and the grad side, there are numerous organizations and programs and clubs to kind of address and empower people of color. As far as racial disparities, I don't think that I see many. It is just mentally difficult sometimes to be the only person of color in the room. But those are some things that we talk about regularly at the clubs that I'm a part of, or if it's something that's really affecting your psyche, that you can go to CAPS and you can request to have a Black therapist speak to you about those things so you're more comfortable. But as far as just like blatant disparities, I don't really see any. There have been a few incidents on campus last year with the name of the buildings and the Confederate statues, and I would say that it's been taken care of pretty swiftly and pretty openly. Also, yeah, I think all of the incidents that have been brought up by students have been taken care of pretty swiftly and pretty openly, and I think that's a good sign for being open to change and being progressive. It's one thing if people are trying to sweep it under the rug, but when you're open about things, and most of those things are student led. So if you have an issue here at Duke, I would never feel afraid to just go and speak up on it because it is going to get addressed.
Yeah, I would say that I don't really know what it's like as an undergrad, and so the undergrad experience might be very different. My program is actually predominantly international, and predominantly Asian, so it, it it's got a good mix of racial representation, just from being predominantly international, and so I all my classmates that I work with and stuff are from various backgrounds and stuff. And so at the grad school in classes and stuff, I've seen it's been a very positive experience and positive interactions. But you're certainly right. There have been a couple of incidents, unfortunately, on campus that have revolved around graffiti and stuff. But I think they're working to address it. And funnily enough, this is something I was just talking to my girlfriend about yesterday, is that it's actually really shocking for me that when you walk around and all of the wait staff are people of color, and that's not what I'm used to, and so I think the racial disparities are visible and they are there, but I think
Durham is predominantly Black and Latino populations, and so stepping on Duke's campus, it kind of doesn't feel like that sometimes, and I say that's where the disparities lie. But there are programs on the grad school level as well as just broad scale university level to increase good relations with the actual population of Durham and Duke. So I think we're definitely moving towards in the right direction.
Yeah.
Is it possible to TA for an undergrad course as a master's student without having taken it at Duke?
Yeah, it is. If you know a professor or if your advisor can recommend you to someone, I've got friends who've done that as master's students. They're going to want you to be able to prove to them that you have some proficiency in what it is you're TAing, but it's totally doable.
Nice. I'm like trying to push off TAing. I can't think about it right now.
It's a lot of work.
Are there any property management companies or groups you recommend avoiding?
I don't remember the name of my property managers at West Village, but avoid them. I have other friends who lived there who also had negative experiences so it's not just me. I think that talk to people. If you can reach out to people in your program who are already like second or third years or fourth years or whatever, who have lived here, they'll be able to give you some recommendations on where to live. And that's really useful information. I think it's pretty easy, at least in my department, all our emails are listed online. Just pick someone and email them. I've had good experiences with people emailing me back, so.
What are some quiet working spaces on and off campus without background music?
Off campus, I'm not sure.
Yeah. On campus, definitely your libraries or your little study nooks in each building. One that I found recently is in the Trent Seaman Center. They have really open like spaces on each floor, and it's a beautiful view. You can kind of see like the tip of Duke Chapel, and it's generally very quiet.
Yeah, Perkins Library has some rooms that are good to work in. Bostock Library, Gross Hall. If you are willing to kind of walk around a little bit and find the right place for you, you can usually find a place that's pretty quiet to work.
Have you tried the on-campus dental clinic?
I have not. It's relatively new. I think it only started this semester or this year or something. So
I didn't even know it was a thing. So I'm sure they're good. I think UNC offers like a similar program with their dental students.
Yeah, everything Duke offers though is good, so I'm sure it's good. Like, I'm not saying that to just be facetious, but like the amenities on Duke, some of my friends call it a resort, and it kind of feels like it.
How are mental health services for grad students?
Yeah, this is actually something we touched on briefly earlier, but the mental health services I think are excellent. There's a walk-in counseling and psychological services clinic. You can schedule follow-up appointments. They offer group therapy, individual therapy, and I think there's a recognition that it's important. Some of the departments, including my own, maybe aren't the best at it, but I think the university as a whole really supports mental health initiatives.
And they also put on different, activities during the semester, art-related things sometimes. So.
Yeah, yoga and stuff like that.
How do grad students get medical care?
So the graduate school offers a health plan to all incoming grad students. If you're lucky enough to still be on your parents' plan, okay. Some of us are too old for that. But the grad student health plan is like A+ service. I have a recurring prescription on my old health plan at my company. It's like $500. With the Duke plan, it's 10.
Oh.
So yeah, it's a really good plan.
And they also, so that's included. Is it included for master's
It's
students?
in your fees that you are required to pay.
Okay, well, for I guess for PhD students, it's included. So it's paid for by your department, and then you could also opt to get the dental insurance. And I think I paid $40 a month for dental insurance. Yeah. How do you spend an ordinary day at Duke?
I think we both said we get here at like 8. If you have classes, you mix your classes in. I'm usually on campus from 8 till about 7. I go home, make some dinner, and then work till 10, go to bed.
So these first 2 years I've been taking classes. So my summer schedule and then my semester schedule have been different, whereas my semester schedule is much like what you just described. But my summer schedule, where I don't have to have the extra load of classes, I've been able to maintain like an 8 to 4:30 thing and going home and relaxing and having that mental break, which is nice. And most PhD programs is just your first 2 years that you're taking your courses, and then the rest of it you can treat it like going to a job. Do a lot of grad students use bikes to get between West and East Campus?
I don't think so. Like, you can bike. It's only like a couple miles. I think the vast majority of people just use buses. There's 2 or 3 bus routes that run between campus, and it's like every 5 minutes. So it's really, really easy.
Yeah. How common is bike theft?
Don't own a bike, never have. I don't know anybody who's had a bike stolen on campus, for what it's worth.
Yeah. Is it possible to add in a master's to your PhD program? So yeah, that's actually like a selling point. You are able to get a free master's while you're doing your PhD. It does have to be worked out with your program as well as your with your PI. I've thought about jumping for the master's in biostats on and off, but when it comes down to it, those are more classes that I'm going to have to take. I'm going to push off my actual research for longer, and so I've opted to not do that, but to spring for more like workshops that will teach me some of the niche things I want to learn. And a lot of times their PI and your programs will support your funding for those types of workshops.
Yeah, I actually have a buddy who's doing a master's in economics while pursuing his PhD in philosophy. So I do know that people do it. but you're right. It does. It's more classes and it's more work, so you really have to be on top of it. But it's totally doable.
Yeah. Another popular one is, I think, science communication. I don't know if that's the actual name of the master's program, but a lot of STEM people also take those classes and try to get their master's as well. You can always take the classes on your own, and then if you still happen to rack it up, that way it fulfills the master's degree, then they'll honor that.
Yep.
Is it oh wait, how LGBTQ friendly is Durham?
So I think it's fairly LGBT friendly.
Mhm.
I am not myself a member of that community, but I have several friends who are, and I think there's a lot of groups and stuff on campus that really work to promote LGBT rights and stuff. And I think Durham on the whole it's a very liberal city. So I think a lot of the businesses and stuff are LGBT friendly, and I haven't heard of anyone having any issues.
Yeah, Durham is pretty liberal, very progressive. Raleigh and Chapel Hill are too. It's a pretty friendly place to live in. What kinds of shopping malls are in the area?
I know of two. There's Northgate and Southgate.
So,
Northgate
and South Point.
South Point.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm aware of two, even if I can't name them.
Yeah. So those are the two major ones in shopping malls in Durham. There's also like strip malls going towards Chapel Hill, and then Briar Creek, which is going towards Raleigh. There are malls in Raleigh as well. Lots of shopping areas. I live close to South Point, and so it can get a little dangerous with my bank account sometimes, but they're pretty great.
South Point's nice. It's kind of fancy.
Are bus services punctual?
It can be a little hit or miss. I think on the whole they're pretty punctual, but there's an app called Rider that tracks all the Duke buses for you. And I basically live in that app when I'm trying to get to campus.
It also tracks, I think, all the buses.
Yeah, it also tracks all the Durham buses as well. So it's really convenient. It's a free app. If you're planning on the buses, you should get it.
What's the closest beach?
Wrightsville, or
yeah, I think it's either Wrightsville or Wilmington. About 2 hours.
Yeah, 2.5 hours. So you can go on a weekend if you want. They're nice. I've been there.
Yeah, there's also the Outer Banks, which is like 4 hours away, but it's like a lot quieter and very residential compared to like the more popular beaches.
Yeah.
Are there dance clubs at Duke? At Duke?
Do you mean if you mean like clubs for people who enjoy dancing?
Okay.
I feel like there's a couple.
Yeah, definitely. I know there's swing dancing for sure because they performed at one of the basketball games. Yeah.
If you mean
like
clubs to go out and dance at, there's a couple that may or may not. I'm not sure that I would recommend, but yeah, they can be fun. There's a place called Shooters downtown. You only want to go on Fridays because I think every other night of the week it's packed with undergrads. And then if you're into like dubstep, electronica, there's a place on Main Street called Arcana. It's decorated like my grandmother's living room though, so it's sort of weird. It's very European.
Interesting. I'll check that out. Are there night safety escorts that will walk you to your car? I
don't think so, but there is an app. I think it's called the Live Safe app. That in conjunction with Duke, you can have someone electronically follow you to your car. And there are like emergency phones pretty regularly throughout campus. And like I said earlier, Duke has a ton of security guards and stuff that work on campus, especially at night.
Yeah.
So there's usually one in sight as you're walking around.
Yeah. They're really nice too and easy to contact and get a hold of.
Yeah.
How difficult is it getting basketball season tickets?
You have to camp out.
Yeah.
Have you done it?
I signed up to camp out this year, but the
Hurricane.
hurricane canceled it, and so what they did was like a lottery system. And what my program does is we all like sign up to camp out, and then whoever wins will split the tickets amongst us over the season, and that's a pretty effective way, so you don't have to pay for all of it. But
yeah, I did camp out. I did the actual camp out last year, and I did the pseudo camp out this year. It's from Friday at like 4 until Sunday at 10, and they let you sleep for about 2 hours during that period. So it's a little tough. It puts you in the hole and on work and stuff. And then at the end, it's just a lottery. So all you've done is suffer to get into the lottery. My first year, I didn't win, which was pretty disappointing. But I got them this year. I think they're like $300 if you win the lottery.
for the whole season.
For the whole season, but it's well worth it. Camp out is a really cool experience. I would definitely recommend that you do it at least once.
Yeah. And do you know how long the undergrad camp out is?
The undergrad camp out is weeks, and it's got weird rules. And yeah, I'm here in 6 weeks, and I'd be happy that you don't have to do it because I think that we would all fail our classes.
Yeah, probably. Are roads near campus bike friendly? Are there bike lanes?
There's bike lanes on some of the roads. I know like Campus Drive between East and West has a bike lane. Duke University Road has a bike lane, but I don't think Main Street does.
No, yeah, bike lanes. We're working on it. Durham's working.
Yeah.
What is religious life like on campus? How common are different religious services on campus? So I could only attest to what I've learned from like the grad school day where you go and like get all the pamphlets and stuff. But they have services here, I believe, every Sunday, and then other denominations also have services here. But I don't know what days. I go to World Overcomers Christian Church, which is off of Miami Boulevard, a little bit farther from campus. And there's lots of different churches around here too. My friend who her family's from a country in Africa, they go to an African-based church, and so there's lots of different options here if you're interested.
Yeah, I actually attend Mass on campus in the Goodson Chapel, which is not the main chapel, but nearby. I think that there are a number of faith organizations on campus, both grad and undergrad organizations that are very friendly, very helpful and stuff. And so I go to a weekly Bible study over in the Catholic Center on East Campus, and I think it's pretty accessible. Religion is pretty accessible here, and I think there's a really open, diverse community of different religions and stuff. So I think you'll probably be able to find your niche.
Can married people stay in the university apartments?
I'm going to assume by university apartments that you mean where I'm living, which are not actually associated with the university. I probably should have said that. As far as we're aware, there's no grad student housing associated with Duke. We've been promised it for about 10 years. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but we'll see. Where I live, which is called university apartments, they're just regular apartments. So
yeah. What do your typical weekends look like? So mine really varies depending on what my husband's up to and how motivated I am that weekend. I like to keep my weekends light. If the weather is nice, I like to do outdoors things, but it's typically very chill.
Yeah, I take Friday evenings off. I usually quit around 6 o'clock on Friday. Take Friday evening off, try to, if I'm not too busy, take Saturday off, and then I work on Sunday. But usually try to only work like 6 to 8 hours on Sunday if I can get away with it.
Yeah, Sundays are usually like my ramp up days, like getting prepared for the week, what I have to get done and stuff like that. But pretty light. I usually try and do like my grocery shopping and my cooking between Saturday and Sunday, and does the social scene revolve around Duke? Does the social scene revolve around Duke, the undergrads, certain professional schools, or it's fairly mixed and balanced?
If you are in the MBA program or the law school or the med school, all of those put on a ton of social events just for themselves. For the rest of us, the social scene is sort of what you make of it. I have never hung out with any undergrads, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it really just depends on where you are. In my lab, we have a few undergrads, so we hang out with them. But
I think it's fairly mixed. I think there's stuff to do depending on what your scene is. If you really enjoy the arts, there are several things around campus, around Durham itself, and definitely in Chapel Hill and Raleigh. I really enjoy the brewery scene, and there's a ton of good breweries. If you like board games or stuff like that, there's definitely like places that cater to that sort of thing. Like there's a couple clubs, so you can definitely find your niche.
Yeah.
Again,
how's parking on campus? So there's primarily one parking garage for graduate students, and it's off of Science Drive, like at the end of Science Drive. It generally gets pretty filled up between like 8 and 10, and it's generally a farther walk from most of the other grad school buildings, but excluding the law school and the School for Public Policy. I recently opted to get in the wait list for the Hawk Plaza parking, which is off of Irwin. So it's about half the distance for me personally, but it is like double the price. So, and it is a wait list. There's also circuit parking, which is more central to East Campus, and they prioritize people who are carpooling with other people. So it depends on what your price point is and how willing you are to walk and stuff like that.
I think the standard parking pass is $500, something like that. Yeah. So there's also a nights and weekends pass, which I use. And if you have that, you can park anywhere where you can get a spot, which is really nice if you like to. So I like to work out, so sometimes I'll drive in the evening, and you can just park at the gym or whatever. But yeah, during the day, you're pretty restricted.
What's been the biggest surprise for you coming to Duke? I think for me, I talked about this a little bit earlier, but the biggest surprise was just like the shift from my academic courses versus research. I did research when I was in undergrad, but it was always understood as like something I do part-time outside of school, where I think grad school, for my program, it's more research and then school and classwork on the side. So I think that was like the biggest surprise or switch up for me.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest surprise was coming from my undergrad, where no one cared about you at all, to here at Duke, where it feels like there's a lot of people who care about you. There's a ton of resources for students, and a lot of the advisors, a lot of the faculty really do put a solid effort and interest into their students. So I think the biggest surprise has been how supported I feel here.
And that's a wrap. Anyone with questions who didn't get answered, send them to grad-admissions@duke.edu.
Thank you for joining us. We've had a great time answering your all's questions, and I look forward to seeing you guys on campus.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.